I'm a firm believer that if you don't understand the business, there's no way you can run it. My first experience was Domino's Pizza back then. I mean, I was 18 years old and probably was very eager to start. But the Domino's team guys told me, hey, you gotta cut the pizza, you gotta make the pizza, you gotta do inventory, you gotta be at the cashier. You need to understand what it takes to have a pizza delivered.
Absolutely.
Six
Absolutely. It gives
six
you
months.
perspective.
Yeah, the first 6 months I really worked at it. And now 20 years afterwards, I really understand what it takes so I can manage it.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, Francisco, and we have John here. But today's episode is going to be really good. I mean, it holds. I think it's has a special place in my heart. Really have a good feeling about this episode. We have our special guests here today, Jaime Rionda with Eagle Capital Property (EPC). Thanks for joining us, Jaime.
Thank you for joining us, Jaime. Hey guys, this is John Azar. Francisco Herrera is with us today. He just he's Francisco's like I don't know, what are you, nursing a hangover or something like that, Francisco? They did had a little fun the night before. Uh,
I'm trying to keep my head straight. I'm trying to keep my head straight here today.
yeah, it
No,
looks
no,
like the
no. But
person
all
who
fun and
who is
games,
nursing
though.
who looks like who might be nursing a hangover is Jaime. He's like he's in a perfect spot for a hangover in Miami. So um
I wish I'm not, but I wish I
Jaime,
am.
what's going on, buddy? I'll let you give a little snapshot about yourself and yeah, hey man, I say it out of envy, man. I see the palm trees in the background and I wish I was where you are. So it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, Jaime,
It was
welcome
good.
again. If you can give us like a little snapshot about yourself and we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna hide the palm tree so you guys wouldn't get envious, but maybe next time she'll give me a heads up about it.
It's
Uh,
all good.
well,
It's all
snapshot
good.
is I'm very involved with real estate, and I've been for the past basically 10 years of my life. I guess real estate just I stumbled into it. Honestly, I was never pointing towards it. At least at the beginning of my professional career, I always thought I would end up being a financial in some form or case, stockbroker or whatever. That's where I started, and eventually life uh, showed me a different way, and I ended up taking care of expansion for a movie theater in Mexico, and that's where I really fell in love with real estate. Had no experience at all, and
Wow,
it was a
you gave like a whole snap, like a 30-year snapshot in this in 10. That was the quickest snapshot of like the most pervasive out of timeline that we've had, I think, on the show.
well. I don't know how deep do you want to
um,
get involved in my life, so
no. We want to get deep. We want to
No,
get
no.
deep.
We'll get deep.
No, we'll get deep. No, believe me, we'll get deep. Let's back up a little bit to where like where were you raised? Where did you grow up? You know, that kind of stuff.
okay. Well, born and raised in Mexico City. Been living there basically my whole life. I started elementary school in Mexico City. Started to play soccer around fourth and fifth in elementary. Really loved the sport and wanted to even try to become a professional player around my teenage years. Mexico, as you know, has a very big. It's probably the biggest sport in Mexico. So there's a lot of competition. Um, I was studying in a private school back then, and private schools, at least for Mexican soccer players, it basically doesn't exist. So it was a difficult background in that sense. It wasn't uncomfortable at all. I just, if you wanted to become a soccer player, that would be complicated. Tried, tried to. I was accepted in a Mexican soccer team, but my dad wouldn't allow it. He just didn't think it was
Mm.
the
So
best career
wait, so
choice.
you were actually drafted in with a professional soccer team?
Yeah, that it's different than in America, so I wouldn't label it as drafted. I would just label it as accepted in the minor um, forces. That's how it's called. Like the
You
minor
you
league.
did you did
Like
a
the
walk
second
on. I
team?
mean, essentially.
Yeah, I just showed
Okay.
a guy.
And you got in. I mean, you try. I mean, assuming you had to try out to try in to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
in.
I skipped school for one day. I went to the practice, and the guy saw me play. He said, "Hey, I want you to come and play for the first team. Start to train with the first team because I was 15 at the back then. So, and I tried out with the guys
Yeah.
who were 14. So he was like, first team starts practices in the morning, so you need to skip school. So I was there. I played okay, I guess, and they said, "Okay, stay with us." And when I told my dad in the afternoon, he said, "No way, my son is not going to be a soccer player. And I don't think that's the way to go." And to be
Wow.
honest, I didn't put much resistance. I think I just wanted to know I could do it, and eventually I got over it pretty fast. So I think it was just proving to myself that I was good enough at least to enter into the team. I'm not sure if I was good enough to play professionally, but at least good enough to play and train with those guys.
That's very surprising to me because I mean, and this is the reason why in the beginning of the show, John, as I said that this guest in this show it holds really close to my heart is because it's rooted in it's Mexican rooted and coming from the Mexican background because I'm Mexican myself, but it's kind of hard to believe or to think like, hey, your parents weren't as supportive for you to have the potential for you to be a professional soccer player because that's all they would want, especially like for their sons. If they're good enough and they're trying now and they get accepted to a club, normally the kind of feedback you want is they want them to continue to pursue that because soccer is so big in Mexico that it's almost for a lot of players who probably don't have such a good upbringing, that's all they look forward to. It's almost like other parts of the country, like let's say in Brazil, all they look for is I need to try to make it into professional soccer. And it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of it's new to me to actually to hear that your dad wasn't as supportive in that.
Yeah, that's surprising. That's definitely surprising for me as well. But maybe did your dad have like other plans for you that he wants you to like get into business really early in life or something, or
Yeah.
what was the holdup?
Yeah, he didn't think. Well, he knows as now I do that playing a professional sport is very demanding, especially at a young age, and you leave a lot of things on the
Yeah.
side just to play for it, and just very few make it. So he believed it was a
Yeah,
much safer bet to aim towards business and not to play. So, and to be
Got
honest,
it.
at that age, at 15, as I said, I got over it very fast because at the end of the day, I think I just wanted to know if I was good enough. I'm not sure I had the mentality.
Okay.
I would sacrifice all that to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
didn't get much support, but I think if I would have pushed a little bit more, and I'm not saying much more, I would have gotten the
yeah,
support. For me, it was some like I don't know,
yeah,
Yeah.
a milestone.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
hear you.
It's
I
just
hear
something
you.
you just wanted to prove to yourself that, hey, you know
Yeah,
what? I did it and now on to the next chapter.
yeah. At least I
Yeah.
know.
Well, what was the next milestone from that you wanted to recognize for yourself as a after your teenager or maybe mid-teen, late teens? What was after that?
Well, mid-teens, that's when I wanted to start to make money. Very early age. I continued playing soccer in a mature level. I started selling soccer shoes. It's back when color soccer shoes came around. The Adoras. I don't know if you remember those guys. The
Yeah.
Italians started wearing those
Yeah.
blue blue soccer shoes that were really a revelation because all soccer shoes were black until the Adora started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Adora started with the blue ones for the Italian national team and the green ones, and the red
Yep.
ones, Milan. So I started selling those, which was a big flop because I gave credit. That's when I understood credit. I started selling them with credit, and people wouldn't pay me, and I had to pay the my vendors. So I got in a very
Oh, you
small.
started selling them on credit?
Yeah, because these guys were teenagers and they didn't have $100 to spare. So I said, okay,
There
give
was
me
there was
30.
no there was no credit application that had to be submitted to you at the
Oh,
time.
I didn't filter them at all. So I started
Oh
selling it.
man.
I sold, I sold a lot of shoes and didn't get quite the wholesale bag. So it was complicated. So then understand that credit was a complicated issue, and I didn't. So I didn't survive at least my first business venture. Afterwards, I started
Mm.
a, a Domino's Pizza franchise with the help of my dad, which I still own.
Oh nice.
Yeah, 20,
Wow.
23
Oh
You
years
wow.
still
That's
own it with your dad?
in Mexico City? In Mexico City?
in Mexico City. I own a couple of other. I own 7 Domino's Pizza stores down in Mexico City, and started with that one. That was my first real business venture. I got the whole support from my dad. I paid him off, and now it's a business of my own with 2 other partners, which we
Wow,
started
that's awesome.
back then.
Wait,
That's
so
amazing.
let me go back a little bit. So your dad, does he? I can see that in you and embedded in your DNA, and it's embedded in all of our DNAs when it comes to minorities. We're always very entrepreneur spirited. And you can already have seen, I mean, you having to go into your first business venture selling soccer shoes. But does your dad also come from the business world? Is that what was like ingrained in you? Or was that something that he just envisioned for you and saying, hey, you know what? Being in business is the way to go. And that's where I want you to go.
Yeah, well, my I guess I'm gonna go a lot back. My grandfather he came from Spain, and as a lot of immigrants in every country, they didn't come with much, and they started selling. He started selling clothes in Mexico. Then he developed a brand, which was a pretty successful brand in Mexico. Now one of my uncle owns and operates, and my father never worked in the, let's say, the family business, but he worked on himself by himself, and he was basically involved in financial institutions, banks, brokers
Mm.
house.
What did your dad do, Jaime?
Well, he's an economist. He sold insurance from. Also, he was a stockbroker. He bought a brokerage
Mm.
firm back in the 80s. And buying a brokerage firm back in the 80s in Mexico probably was like buying one in the 60s in America. I mean, there was no real regulation. They were just really getting started. So that's where he really made a big jump by himself economically. He later sold a brokerage
That's
firm,
great.
did, did pretty well. And afterwards, he kept working with banks, other brokerage firms. And at the very end, he had a financial service company. So he's now retired, but
Now I see where the business
Yeah,
acumen came in from for you.
exactly.
It's in the
Yeah.
DNA, brother. It's in the
Hence
DNA.
the push into the business world. So that's good. That's good. That's
yeah,
awesome. But
yeah.
why Domino's? Like, where did that come about as that being like your
Well,
first uh business venture with your father?
that was a very fun story. We used to buy tacos in a little stand in Mexico City, and one of a close friend of mine, his mom was the director of a children's museum in Mexico, and I approached him and said, after my bankruptcy with the soccer shoes, I approached him and told him, why don't we put this taco stand in the Children's Museum? I have saved like, I think it was like $1,000. I think that'll be the whole investment, and we can start selling them. I mean, there's no real food. There was no food court. There was anything, but you had a lot of people. And a lot of people that stayed in the museum for 5, 6, even 7 hours. So he liked the idea. He approached his mom. His mom loved the idea, especially because it was our idea. And when we sat down with the committee from the museum, they said, no, 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 we don't want a taco stand laying around in our museum. Bring us to the table something more with a brand. And they suggested Pizza Hut or Domino's Pizza. And we approached them. The Domino's Pizza guys were very open and great with us. They even gave us a discount. They were very eager to have their brand in the Children's Museum. So that's honestly how we ended up with Domino's Pizza, because I didn't have a capital
Wow.
to franchise it. But when I told my father,
That's really
he said,
cool.
"I'll back you up, because it's a brand that's going to work very well in a great market." So that's how we ended up.
And you
with
were
it.
and you were
at a
how old
very-
then, Jaime?
I was 18.
Okay.
So Jaime was raising capital since the age of 18. You see that was his first equity raise from his father for the Domino's Pizza. I love it.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, that's awesome, man. In 18, I didn't even know how to even start to build a business at 18. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
get capital for it. That's a good story. I like it.
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
love
Never
the
too
fact
early to
that-
start, kiddos. Never too early to start.
Never
Don't
too
worry.
early. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, no.
don't sell by
I mean,
credit.
almost in every part. Sell by credit. This is what I love about Mexico is and I don't know a lot as far as like on the Middle East, John, and you can probably speak to that. But in regards to Mexico, it's like literally it's like entrepreneurial land. It's like every little corner that you go to, either you have taco stands or you have hot dog stands. You have essentially people building their business in front of their homes. So where they live, right in their front of their house, they're already starting their business, and it's very much ingrained in us. So the fact, so I'm not surprised at the fact that Jaime at such an early age has already thought about business and doing business, because I mean I see it all the time. I mean, I go to Tijuana, well, mostly like on a regular basis. But when I go there, you see these young little kids just going out there hustling, trying to make some money. Either they have like a bread stand right in the corner. They're very entrepreneurial, and that's just their lifestyle. That's all they know. So they're already working
Yeah.
at such a young age, whether they're like 8, 9, 10 years old. They're already out there hustling. So by the time they're 18, they already have that mentality, like essentially matured from all those years that they've been doing this at such a young age. I didn't do that. Again, I mean, I didn't grow up like that, but it's amazing to see how you really develop even at such a young age to do something like how you just did. Like that's really, really
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think Mexico has a little bit more, or a lot more, robust and stable financial system than the Middle East did. When I grew up in Syria, so it's the banking system is mature and even back in the 80s, that was not the same. I mean, it's where I grew up, it's you have to. Everything is cash, and there was like the banking system is not that sophisticated, and certainly the branding, these multinational brands did not exist where I grew up. I mean, the Domino's Pizza, Pizza Hut, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we didn't have that. I didn't really have any multinational brands until my family immigrated to the United States. So, but yeah, that's amazing, Jaime. That's a good
Yeah.
story. So where do you go from there? You got the pizza franchise. You did that at 18. What's the next adventure that happened
Well,
after that?
I went to a couple of months to Europe. I worked at Hanover Expo 2000. That was 22 years ago. And I worked in Germany. It was in Hanover, Germany, for a couple of months. So
Mhm.
I after I graduated from high school, I spent a couple of months in 1 month traveling Europe and a couple of months working in Germany, and came back to Mexico City to actually to open the store. That was back in December of 2000. We opened our first store, the Children's Museum, and started college on January of 2001. I studied. I think it's different from the U.S. We really like get into it quite fast. I started industrial engineering and studied that for 4 years. I've always been a pretty lousy student, to be honest, and college was no exception. I did okay, but just okay. I mean, I didn't do great. I just
Most good entrepreneurs make
Most of
lousy
us.
students, Jaime.
Yeah.
I hate studying. It's not in my DNA, definitely. So
I hear you. I hear you. That's because we're too impatient. We're too impatient. We want to move on to the next thing.
yeah, exactly. So I did okay. Then I started to work mid college around this, at least in Mexico. I'm not sure how it works in the US. Sixth semester. By the sixth semester, we usually takes us 8 semesters to finish the industrial engineering. I started working in a brokerage firm as as an analyst. I worked there for 2 years, which was a pretty excruciating time for me because I would start college. My first class would be 7 to 9. After 9, I would drive to the brokerage firm, work from around 10 to 3, and at 4, I would be back in college and ended up around 10. So it was very tiring,
Wow.
very complicated, but I learned a lot. That,
Mentally
at the
taxing
moment,
for sure.
at the moment, I thought that was my calling to be a financial, not a financial, but at least I thought I was going to be a stockbroker. I always thought about it, and once I worked at it, I liked it. I mean, I really appreciate it, and it helped me understand. I think the broad market of whose companies, what do they do, the manufacturers, the financial, the valuations, how you evaluate a company, how the stock market works. So it gave me a lot of tools that later on in life helped me a lot. But I understood, at least in the first year, that that was not what I wanted to do the rest of my life. So I quit and started another business. I started a computer business. This was back in 2004. We started doing technical support. The idea was to give technical support to small companies, medium and
You again, I'm always curious as how you get certain ideas to start different businesses. So how did the computer support is just because of what you were studying or you were exposed to that? Like how did you even think about starting a computer support business? Where did that
well,
idea come from?
I had a lot of conversations, and I realized that technical support now in the early 2000s was a must. Not all small companies, they doing maybe a micro company. I mean, 4, 5, 6 employees.
This was after Y2K. This was after Y2K.
Yeah,
So
this was after Y2K. I realized they didn't have enough capital or funding to have an IT guy on site 24/7. So the idea was, we'll be your IT guys. We'll just come maybe once or twice a week. We'll give you the support, and then you don't need to hire one because your company is 4, 5, 10, maybe 20 people. And we found a niche. It was a good niche. A lot of people appreciated our services, especially because they didn't want to hire an IT guy. So we basically brought in a solution. I was in charge of sales. I'm not an IT guy. My partner was the IT guy. I was more in charge of.
And your services were only in Mexico City, Jaime, at the time?
Yeah, at the time, we were only in Mexico City. We started that company. Uh, then a year and a half later, my partner, which was the IT guy, wanted to study a master's degree, and he said, having started this company, we did like a what's it called? The Best Buy guys have a Geek Squad. Have you seen Geek Squad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Yeah.
something very,
Yeah.
very similar to Geek Squad, which was very, very new back then.
Ah, okay.
Now, I don't think
Got it. Got
they
it.
exist, but back then, that's what we tried to
So
do.
you're
because
one of the
people-
founding fathers of the Geek Squad. You, one of the pioneers.
It's the Geek Squad version of Mexico City. essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in a weird way, yeah, in Mexico City. Then my partner wanted to leave uh, to study his master's, and he didn't want to have. Well, he said his resume needed more structure, and having started this company wasn't enough. So we sold the company to a friend of mine, actually, which still operates on a minor scale. And of course, it's changed a lot, the business 20 years ago. So, but it's still standing. So at least I'm proud that it's still there.
That's great.
That's
That's
great.
all. That's
Cute.
awesome. So how did you make your way into real estate?
Well, then I started working in a mining company for 2 years. I have a
Mining company, like actual mining, like mining it for like precious metals or
copper, gold, silver, and zinc.
Wow.
Yeah, mining company.
damn, you've done it all, Jaime. Mining company. I didn't see that one coming.
I worked there for
I like
Two-
it. I like
for
it.
2 years. I lived in Sonora, in a very, 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 very small place in Sonora called Nacosari, and another small place called La Caridad, which La Caridad has like less than 2,000 citizens. They, of course, all worked for the
Wow.
mining company, and I was no exception.
Yeah. Big
I
driver.
was there for
Where are those places? What part of Mexico is that for us? For us
Northwest.
gringos.
northwest part of Mexico.
Northwest.
Yeah,
Okay.
west.
Yeah.
I would drive on the weekends to Phoenix, so it's pretty close by.
It's right
Very
under
close.
Arizona, John. So just to kind of get a better sense of where in Mexico it's at. So a lot of Arizonans
Oh, I got it.
go down to Sonora. I've actually go to Puerto Peñasco when I go out to Sonora. But that's more of like a touristic. A lot of Arizonians go out there and they in their quads and stuff. But I haven't heard of the cities that you had mentioned in Sonora.
You wouldn't. You would have to live in a mining
Yeah.
site for you to know them. So it was very, very small.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
a different experience for me because I was, of course, I was single and I was all alone because I lived alone. I worked alone, but still I was just 23 years old. So it was a pretty, I don't know, like integrating stage of my life, which I lived in these mountains, worked from 5 a.m. till around 3 p.m. So I had at least from 4 to 8 or 9 p.m. just by myself. So internet was very starting. I mean, there was not much activity there. So I was basically alone most of the time. So, but somehow I learned a lot about.
Oh,
me.
that's probably the age to do it. You know, when you're single and don't have any family commitments, that's when to do all these kind of explore these kind of career adventures.
Correct. And then I was brought into Mexico City offices. I was in charge of selling. I was in the commercial area of the company. So I sold copper, gold, and silver. I worked there for about a year, and the same company owns and operates a freight train company. And they moved me to a freight train company for almost a year and a half also. So I was there for almost 4 years between the mining company and the freight train company. Basically, at the freight train company, I was in operations. I didn't drive the trains, but I was involved in operations and also in the commercial area. And then
Okay.
I quit. I quit this job and started another company. This was a
Mm.
direct sales company. I partner up with a big movie star from Mexico. She's you probably know her, Francisco. It's Veronica Castro. You've heard of her, at least.
Veronica Castro, really?
Yeah, I partner
Mm.
up with her.
Wow.
She's just
Okay.
John. She should be around.
What did you partner up with her to do?
I wanted her to be the image of the products.
The
So
face, the
Oh.
face of the brand.
the face of the brand. So we started this company that was called Veronica Castro, as her name is, and we started selling
Yeah.
lipsticks and shadows and all these things women wear
Oh,
and
cosmetics.
creams and yeah, all cosmetics. And we sold it door by door in a catalog. That was a very interesting time of
Yeah,
my
man,
life.
you've really done it all. I mean, right now so far you're
Man,
two for
nice.
two. The
What?
companies that you are still around, are you three for three now? Is this company still around with Veronica Castro?
We sold the company afterwards, so it's still around, but it
Okay.
doesn't.
And it was a makeup company. Is that what you said? Makeup?
Was a makeup cosmetic company using a big star in Mexico, and but we sold it door by door. So
Yeah. Wow.
the fun part about this is that we would do these gatherings, and all these women from Mexico would come, and I would try to talk to them, try to motivate them, try to make them go out and sell as much as they could. And it was very successful for the first year. I mean, sales were rocketing. Then I had some trouble
Wow.
with this artist. Artists are very complicated. They don't understand. I'm not complicated. I mean, they don't understand business. And she wanted money fast, and she was like, "Hey, where's my money?" And I was like, "Your money is gonna come up, but it'll take us a couple of years. I mean, we need to ramp up. We need to invest a lot of the cash that comes from all the different sources.
Yeah.
A lot of capex has to go in. I mean, we're doing a warehouse. So she got a bit desperate, and she said, "No, I want my
Ah.
money now, or I don't want to have, or somebody's making a lot of money, and it's not me." So we took
Mm.
a route and said, "Hey, you know, let's sell this. If you don't have enough patience for this, then I think we should sell the business for somebody that appreciates because in this business, what you have is the sales women. I mean, we had almost 2,000 sales women.
Yeah, this was similar. Sounds like it's similar to like Avon or something like that.
That's
You know, here in the
exactly-
States, you know, they have like Avon. or
exactly
something
what
like
we did. Exactly what we did in a very
Okay.
similar sense. Which is the difference, we had a brand that's very recognizable in Mexico. We even had people buying from us from Russia. She's a big star in Russia. I don't know why.
Wow.
that. Wow.
So
Are you able to
operas-
share the name of the brand, or you're not allowed to?
Well, the brand was her name, Veronica Castro. That was that brand.
Oh, so
Oh,
just
the brand
Veronica
was her name.
Castro. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
the brand was her name.
We
Okay.
used her brand.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Wow. Man, your entrepreneurship career journey is keeping me on the edge of my seat here. I'm dying to find out how the hell you made the switch to real estate.
So we've done we've,
That's
we've
at the
done
very end, John.
pizza.
That's the crescendo, man. That's the crescendo.
Yeah, he's building it up little by little.
He's
That's
building. It
great.
is. It is.
No,
So
I
we
like
have
it.
to back
pizza,
up.
we have computer, IT, and now we have makeup. All right, I'm on the
Man.
edge. I'd love to.
Yeah.
What's the next?
Yeah.
one?
This is like a spy novel. Keep going. Keep going, brother.
So afterward, we
I
had
like
to
it.
sell the business. So we didn't sell the business. What we sold was I'm not sure the correct words, like the database, our sales women, our sales force.
Okay.
That was what was really valuable. I mean, because at the end of the day, you have a brand, but what you need and what you end up creating is this big sales force. So I had a guy, a friend of mine that we studied together. He moved to Guadalajara and he sold clothes, the same platform. He used a door-to-door sales. So I called him up and told him, "Hey, I'm running into trouble with this girl, and I think the best thing for me is to take a quit, probably take a loss, and but I have this that we've been working for the past year and a half, which we've grown a lot, and it's not only Mexico City, we have it everywhere in Mexico, and I think it's interesting for you." And he saw it the same way, and he said, "Okay, perfect. I'll buy it from you guys, and I'll keep."
Mhm.
So the brand doesn't exist anymore and hasn't existed for, this was around 2009, and but the sales force, I hope still some girls are involved. Afterwards, I got married just in the middle of this crisis between Veronica Castro and my next.
This cosmetic Watergate that you had over there.
I like how you say it, John.
You like that? You like that?
I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep
All
it.
right. So you finished this cosmetic Watergate, and you met your wife in somewhere in there, and you got married.
I got married.
How did you find real estate? Your way into real estate?
Well, I had a big offer. A friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, you understand this type of businesses?" He just his family just acquired a big movie theater in movie chain in Mexico City, and he said, "I think you're an operational guy. I mean, you've been involved with the franchises for the past." By then, I had around 10 years in experience, a little bit less than 10 years.
Mm.
I need somebody I can trust. I need somebody that can help me potentialize and grow the brand. So, I started working for Cinemex. That was 2011. I asked for them before I started working in the corporate offices if I could be and work in a theater and operate a theater, just one site, for at least 3 months, so I can really like to understand how does it work and what makes a theater tick. So I started working just for one theater for 3 months, and afterwards I moved into the corporate offices. I took over real estate, I took over operations, and I took over booking, which is basically how you program the movies during different theaters,
Yeah.
what schedules to use. So those were the first three areas I started. So that's where I started to get involved in real estate.
That's wow.
I just started. Honestly, I remember telling my boss, I don't know anything about real estate. I mean, I've never been involved with real estate. I'm sure you can find somebody else that has experience who will start. But he said, "No, I think you have what it takes, and you just need to understand it. You're organized enough, and you have common sense, and that's all you need." And I was like, "Well, I don't think so, but if you say so, okay, we'll do it like that." So I started to get involved, try to understand the market. It helped me a lot because I had to travel to see operations. So I would do both. I would see some operations, try to understand why one worked and the other didn't, which obviously is real estate 101. But I didn't have any real training, to be honest. I mean, I just struggled for that first year, trying to understand why one would work, why one rent was higher than the other one, which is very basic, but back then to me was really something very new and something I needed to really get involved. And what happened to me was that I got very involved in real estate because I thought
Mm.
I didn't know enough. So I was worried that things would get out of hand if I didn't get very, very involved. So I neglected a bit operations, which we had a great team back then. So I could have them take care of the job. And
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
would say basically 70 or 75% of my time was focused on real estate. When I took over Cinemex, this was 2011. By 2013, I was co-CEO. We were two CEOs. I was managing from operations to sales to programming to real estate.
That's a testament of how good and how much progress you make in one thing, in one business, and how much of an acumen they see you and value of your ability in that business. I mean, it's just for listeners, Jaime is a perfect example of folks who are, they not only learn the business that they're getting into, they have different businesses, but they learn. I mean, the reason you're so effective, Jaime, I think, is because, just like your friend said, you're very good at learning the business, and the procedure and inside out and running it. And that's what makes it really well. I mean, so that's what makes you very, very effective in what you do, because you'll learn all different facets of the business. I mean, you want it to work in the theater just so you can learn the operation. Just to give you, an example, I'm sure you did the same thing with all the other businesses that you worked in. So there's a really huge value in putting hands-on in those businesses in order for you to understand the different facets and in the financial running of that business. In order for you to really be able to understand the DNA of what you're running.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that if you don't understand the business, there's no way you can run it. My first experience was Domino's Pizza back then. I mean, I was 18 years old and probably was very eager to start. But the Domino's team guys told me, "Hey, you gotta cut the pizza, you gotta make the pizza, you gotta do inventory, you gotta be at the cashier. You need to understand what it takes to have a pizza delivered." And so the first
Absolutely.
six
Absolutely. It gives
six
you
months,
perspective.
yeah, the first 6 months I really worked at it, and now 20 years afterwards, I really understand what it takes so I can manage it. And when I started in Cinemex, everything like fell into its place because it's a different business, of course, movie theater than Domino's Pizza. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and you can run it as a franchise in a sense that what Cinemex didn't have back then was a structure. Cinemex was a fusion of two companies. So once you once you merge two different companies, it's two different ways of doing the same thing. I mean, it's two different ways of doing the same popcorn. So one of my first tasks was to structurize and have everything do exactly the same way, which incredible, but back then they didn't have it. So for me, it was very easy once I understood the business, what I had to do, at least operations wise, was okay. We just need to standardize the company. That's what they need.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
implemented
Yeah, absolutely.
a big standardization program that they keep using till today, from making the managers understand what they're doing, how much they're selling, what's the item they need to be selling, what brings us the biggest margins. They need to understand attendance. They need to understand which are the best days, which are their slow days. Maybe that's when you get a promotion, because every market and every theater is different. So, but for me, having this back experience of the in Domino's Pizza really gave me a very clear direction of where we.
Yeah, it sounds like it gave you a core understanding of definitely a lot of different facets of the franchise business, which is huge for
Definitely,
you.
definitely.
And then in Cinemax, how did you progress into, doing the core real estate that you're currently involved in, which is multifamily and funds and all that kind of stuff?
Well, as I said, I started to focus a lot on real estate, and once the board decided to move the expansion of not just Mexico, when we started back in 2011, Cinemex had around 100 theaters, when I left 2018, I left it at 340 theaters in 2 different countries.
Wow.
So that's when I started to work.
That is a hell of an expansion.
That's when I started to work real estate in the US around 2016. We started the expansion towards, we were seeing Colombia, we were seeing Guatemala, and we were seeing the US. The board decided that we should enter the American market. So I left a lot of my functions as a co-CEO back in Mexico. So I delegated those functions and started the expansion towards the US, which was a real complicated because honestly, coming to the US and sitting down with different developers and trying to explain to them why we were a better option in Mexico, which honestly doesn't really, at least they don't appreciate that there comes a lot of quality from theaters. Maybe now they do because Cinepolis is the second largest movie theater in the world, also a Mexican brand.
Sure. Sure.
Yes.
Cinemex
So,
is
so,
the
so
sixth
yeah, it
largest.
has no involvement, or Cinemex and Cinepolis is not the same, right?
No, not at all. You got
Got
the
it.
top five, the top five biggest companies in the world, at least in movie theaters. Number 2 is Cinepolis, and number 5 is Cinemex. So Mexico's a real player in movie theaters around the world.
Mm.
So that
Mhm.
that was a that
Mhm.
was that
Wow.
was very complicated for me because trying to show up with the developers and making them the pitch and the sale why we were a better option was very complicated and was very time consuming. Eventually, we did it, and years afterwards, now Cinemex has more than 15 different locations in the U.S. and probably still counting. So that's
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
parallel sense. In 2013, I started investing in multifamily as a as an LP, as an investor. A friend of mine called
Yeah.
me. I was
Mm.
at MX and said, "Hey, I'm starting this company. I'm buying multifamily properties. We're doing value add strategy." It was a bit
He's buying in the US at the
in
time.
the U.S. He was based in Mexico City. He said, I'm moving to Miami and I'm going to buy a couple of properties. Help me raise some capital. Let's start the business together. Quit your job in Cinemex and come work with me." Back then, to be honest, I had a lot of stuff in my hands and working with Cinemex. I was very involved. I was very happy, and there was a lot to do, and I liked where I was at the moment. So I told him, I won't I won't join you. I won't quit, but I'll be an investor. Count me in. At least you already have the first investor in. So in a parallel sense, I started learning as an investor how the multifamily worked in the U.S. For us Mexicans, or at least I think I speak for most Latins, we don't really understand what multifamily means or does because we don't have them back home. It's a very different scenario, and now that I understand it, love it, and I think it's great, great. I don't want to say the best investment, but it's definitely up there with one of the best investments because of how it behaves in crisis, and recessions, and when even when things are going great. So that's how I got involved in real estate. And in a parallel sense, that's how I got involved in multifamily properties. I quit working
That's
for
fantastic.
Cinex in 2018. Was the CEO for a shopping center company in Mexico for a year, and things didn't really work out between the partners and me. I'm still a partner with them. The relationship is great, but we just didn't know how to work together. And afterwards, in 2019, that's where I made the jump fully to the fund and to multifamily properties.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Man.
Man, that is I
Took us
I
through
already know
quite
the
the
headline.
journey.
Yeah, it's quite the journey. I already know the headline for this episode from shoes to pizza,
Pizza.
to makeup, to
IT.
to IT, to mining, to to multifamily. I mean, it's a hell of a, to cinemas, to multifamilies, to movies, to multifamilies. Man, that is quite the journey, my friend. That is quite the journey. That is yeah. I don't think we haven't had one
This is
guest
one of
on
the
the show.
best.
I think that that
Yeah.
had this type of journey, like this type of exposure, this type of
I
No,
hope I'm not your
no,
versatility
first.
man.
in their background.
I hope I'm not your first guest, John.
No,
You're
no.
not the first guest. You're not
Not
the
the
first
first
guest.
guest. No, no. But this
No,
this
no,
is
you're not the first
definitely
guest.
up there as far as our guest, and having such a diverse background with all the type of businesses and journey that you have gone through. I mean, talk about breaking resistance. He broke through every single barrier in every single sector. I mean, it's amazing. It's awesome.
That
And
is
I love
the
the fact
mental
that no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the mental. I was gonna say the mentality to switch gears like that is very admirable. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Not
Yeah.
not many people in the world have this ability to switch gears in different industries. Not just in. I mean, this isn't just switching gears and like going from selling shoes to owning a shoe store. This is going from selling shoes to doing copper mining. I mean, it's not. It wasn't that transition, but it was completely different industries. It's not even related. But I think I like what you said, Jaime. Running a business is running a business. If you know how to run the business itself, if you know the DNA of a business and the financial, structure and the bare bones of a business, you can
Yeah.
run any business. It doesn't matter what type
Yeah.
of business it is.
And it's getting in
Let
the
me
trenches,
that.
and I love the fact that how Jaime said, like the fact that when you go into a business and how he went into Cinemex, he wanted to get in the trenches of how you really run an actual theater, as opposed to just coming and working for the corporate office. It's nothing like
Oh
getting in the
yeah,
trenches and knowing the full operations of running a full theater. Then you can go back and say, hey, now I understand how it runs. Now I can come and I can do some work. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Most people don't have that mentality for them to actually be ingrained in the operations like that.
No, no, they don't. Yeah, what that's amazing. What was in all your journey, Jaime? With through all these things, what was the hardest thing that stuck with you, and what was sort of like the biggest lesson you walked away from?
I think that the hardest part was definitely when I did the makeup business with this with movie star. Well, I gave her all the power, and I underestimated her in our relationship, thinking it was more than enough just talking about it. I think I should have had something in writing, which I didn't, which is, of course, a huge mistake. But back then, well, we discussed it a lot, and as all first conversations are, everything seems to be perfect and great. Everybody's on the good side. So, and later on, we have an expression here in Mexico that they grow their claws afterwards. And she did. That was very hard for me walking out because we were doing very well. I'm sure that would have been a great business. And I always wanted to work for myself. And that didn't. I thought that was my breakthrough. It didn't happen. So I think that was, for me at least at the moment, has been my biggest lesson in life, to have everything in order before you start.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. It's all fun and games until stuff gets hard, and then you need that the reliability of actually having a plan and everything on paper and having an understanding and you're having contracts and all that kind of stuff. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Jaime, I have a question for you. I know we're kind of getting ready towards the end of the show, but I had to ask. I know from everything that you have gone through from your entire journey, but one question I have to ask, and I speak. I want to. I It's just very interesting for me. If you would have taken the soccer path, what Mexican soccer club would you have wanted to play for? And America is off the table. You can't pick America.
I always been fan of Club America, so I'm sorry, Paco.
We come. It's a big rivalry, John. My family, they're from Guadalajara, so we're big Chivistas. So that's why I said you can't pick
Okay.
America because there's a big rivalry between America and
Big
Chivas. So
rivalry.
that's one of the biggest
Oh,
rivalries in
okay,
Mexican
okay. I was
soccer.
like, well, am I missing something? Is this nice, nice? Oh man,
Uh,
you know, you got Francisco. You have any of your famous fast questions or anything like that you do at the end?
well, that was part of one of them. What? Because I really was curious and I wanted to know. That's one of the fire round questions. Is what is the Mexican club that you probably would have picked? But I mean, if you have,
I haven't.
if you
I
have,
haven't.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Francisco.
No. I was just gonna ask, like, if you have one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners who are in getting started in real estate, what would that be?
Buy cheap.
Buy
Buy low, sell high. That's great. That's
Buy low,
amazing.
sell-
That's
You
amazing.
buy low, you won't have any issue there.
Oh, that's hilarious. That came out so good.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. That can't be the only advice you have. You're
Well,
killing
it's
me
a-
here, Jaime. You're killing me.
I know it sounds very stupid, but I hear this every time, and people get so involved, and real estate, it's very sexy in all different ways. And people from doing a big tower that's gonna cost them a lot of money, and the returns are not gonna be that big, and the risk is huge, but they just want to make a statement. I mean, the guy that wants to make a shopping center and they just want to pour in a lot of money on materials and make it beautiful, that's not gonna bring any money back. The guy that buys
Oh yeah,
multifamily
you see it all the
property,
time.
I see it every day. I mean, I have this conversation with a lot of
Yeah.
investors. They want to invest in. I want to invest in Miami Beach. Why are you buying in St. Petersburg? I don't want to go there, and it's not where you want to go. I mean, it's where
That's not sexy
we are
enough.
gonna make money. Yeah. So I, I think trying to be more serious. I had a very big businessman tell me there was 3 laws in business, and if I would stick to them, that would be more than enough, and I would never fail. He said
What were the 3 laws?
he said stay away from new technologies. Don't go in
Uh-huh.
to new technologies as soon as they come in. Just wait around, see what works. Maybe you'll getting with an overcharge, but it's worth it because when you pour yourself in a new technology and it doesn't work, you'll basically crash and burn.
Uh-huh.
The second one was stay away from slow forces. And what he meant is businesses that take a lot of your time, you invest a lot of your time, money, connections, whatever, and it still doesn't get enough momentum. And the third one was stay away
Uh-huh.
from fast women. And by fast women, he meant these sexy businesses.
So I think
that
we all. I don't think that one doesn't need an explanation. I think that's
Well-
the only one that speaks for itself.
But what he means by that is stay away from those too sexy businesses that just take your time and really don't bring money to the table.
Yeah, yeah. Sound advice. Sound advice. That's fantastic. Well, Jaime, we're coming to the end of the show, but this has been fabulous. What a journey to walk through. That's thank you. We definitely appreciate you
No,
coming on the show
humbled. Yeah,
and sharing this
humbled.
journey with us. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's a great story.
Thank you, guys. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, and Jaime, real quick,
Okay,
I'll
yes.
let you plug this in. How can people find you, and where can they connect with you?
Honestly, I don't have any social media except LinkedIn.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's under Jaime Rionda in LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Amigo,
Well,
muchas gracias. Fue un placer. Thank you so much. And I know all of our listeners really enjoy the entire journey that you literally took us through from all kinds of aspects in your life and the roller coasters. But all in all, it's this again. This show is dear to my heart because it's Mexican rooted. I'm Mexican. Y arriba las Chivas.
I don't know what you just said, but it didn't sound like something that Jaime liked.
Well, I'm out. I'm out.
Jaime, thank you so much, man. Much love, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again. Much love, brother.